Okay, so you probably read or heard about our presentation today and wondered what on earth is an executive summary. Well, it might seem like a foreign concept, but really you've all used something like this in your lives at some point before. For instance, and I won't ask you to raise hands, but who's ever spark noted like a Shakespeare play or the Federalist Papers or something like that? That's a great example of an executive summary. Okay, so let's talk about first what an executive summary is. And it is a target for your audience. First, it's targeted for your audience. You have to think about who's reading. Let's say you're in a cab, or your boss is taking a cab from the Upper West Side all the way down to the financial district. He's got about 20 minutes, in his cab. He's got to check his BlackBerry, look over a few different things, drink his morning coffee, and look over this executive summary for his big meeting that he's going to see right before he's at work. Another example is a movie trailer. It's a short 2-minute teaser out of a 2-hour film to explain to you what what's involved in the basic story of the film, the basic conflict and resolution, those types of things. Another example is a sales pitch. All right, you have an idea in an executive summary. All right, an executive summary contains the main idea of this big, long, 40-page, 100-page document, case study, whatever. And you want to be able to sell the main ideas and sell the point of this document to your boss so that he'll know what it contains and possibly even take the time to read over the real document more closely. All right, it's essentially the essence of the piece. It's the large document boiled down, like Professor Brenberg said, to the most vital elements, usually on one page. And that leads me into my next point, which is talking about the length. All right, so roughly you want it to be 1 to 2 paragraphs, or you can even go as long as 1 to 2 pages. Another general rule of thumb is that it should never be any more than 10% of your entire work. So if you have a 100-page document, which is quite possible, a 10-page executive summary could be a bit long, but 3 or 4 pages for such a summary could be quite reasonable. And then generally shorter is better. That's the rule of thumb, because the people that you're going to be handing these executive summaries to are very busy. Their time is worth a lot more than yours is, and they have to be able to get the main points and get them quickly. So where should we begin with this? Now, an acronym that I like to use, that I've gained from my experience in speech and debate, is PCAN, okay? Problem, cause, answer, and net benefits. All right, you want to deal with the problem, establish what is the business doing wrong? What could we be doing better? All right, and then you want to focus on the cause. Why are we not being as efficient as we could be? Why are our sales numbers down? Things like that. And then you talk about your answer. You talk about what your document has proposed as the solution to this problem, and then you focus on the net benefits. Okay, by the net benefits, what I mean by that is that businessmen, if they've studied good economics, think on the margin. Okay. They think about what are the benefits to me compared to the opportunity costs. Is it worthwhile to adopt this plan? And that's what you want to talk about. And then you'll expand, and so that's at the very beginning of your executive summary, in the first couple sentences. Next, you'll expand with descriptive details. You won't toss in meaningless details, but whatever details, give it a little bit more flair. Start to put some meat on the bones of what you're talking about. All right, not too much, but enough to get them a good general idea. And you personalize it to your reader. So, you would write different things in an executive summary for the same document if you're addressing it to the provost, as opposed to directing it to the director of admissions. And then organization. You want to focus on your value proposition. Focus on what your document is offering to your executive, what he needs to know for that meeting. And how it will help you. All right, and then you talk about your supporting points. You just bring up the other evidence, the other research that will be relevant and will explain the value proposition in more depth. And then finally, you need to make sure that you always address the need, whatever that need may be, in whatever working context you're talking about. The need and then the solution. And that's extremely important. So. That's all for my presentation now, and I'm going to turn things over to my partner Crystal for the final 5 minutes of our presentation.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Well, so we just went over the organization of what you want your executive summary to look like. You want to have your value proposition, which is the value that you're proposing, and you want it to come across clearly, and you want it to be organized in a way that the busy executive that's looking over it can grab quickly what he needs to see, and he doesn't have to go through a lot of words and abstract words, but you want it to be direct and to the point. And so we have a couple examples here. Here's one about it's an executive summary, just a sample, and you can see how it has a couple paragraphs at the beginning, and that is like an introduction, and then there's also a couple points. So if you want to do it a couple bullet points to outline objectives, or you want to have an outline format, you can do that, or it can be in paragraph form. And also this one has a graph that you can see. If that is beneficial to your presentation, you can include that. Here's another one. I think this is from World Vision, just a sample executive summary again, and you can see how it's a paragraph and a couple points underneath. So you just want to you be direct and use points that directly address what you're trying to get across. And so the next thing is perfection. The last thing that you want is to hand the executive a paper with a lot, like whenever you send in a resume, the worst thing that you can have is mistakes or spelling errors. So the same thing with an executive summary. If you have spelling errors or things out of place, it's just going to completely devalue what you're trying to get across. So you want clear formatting and concise phrasing. So with the clear formatting, if it's outlining, or maybe you want to underline or italicize certain points that are really important, and again, you don't want to overdo it, so that can get messy if you do too many bullet points or italices, but where it's really important, you want to make sure that it pops out and grabs their attention, and you want the phrasing to be concise. You don't want extra words or confusing language that is just harder to read. You want it to be to the point and direct. You want to present the bottom line clearly, so you don't want them to have to be searching through the whole piece to find what you're actually trying to tell them. You want it to be clear so that they get what you're trying to get across. And you want to demonstrate your knowledge. Make sure that they see, along with personalizing, you want to make sure that you get across that you know what you're talking about, and be persuasive. So whenever you present the executive summary, you want them to be persuaded that this is a good idea, that they want to read more, or that they want to contact you and get more information. You want to persuade them that this matters, that it's not just a paper that they can throw out and never look at again. So remember, a few things that you want to remember with the executive summary is you want it to be a captivating overview. That's what the executive summary is. It's an overview that you want to captivate the attention of the person who is reading it. So this is the first thing that they're going to read that tells them about what is underneath. So you want it to grab their attention. And implementation and benefits, you want to clearly tell them how you plan to implement what your plan is, and you also want to make sure you clearly address the benefits of what you're presenting. And finally, you want to be clear, concise, and compelling. You want to use clear words, not abstract, be direct, you want to be concise, and you also want to be compelling. You want the executive or your audience to want to read more, or to want to talk about your summary, and you want them to be interested. So I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, we can address them now.
Okay, Okay, so questions for our presenters? Yes.
With formatting, I don't really want to read that. Is having like a really approachable format, is that something that you guys read much about, or?
Well, the examples that I got, I'm not very good with like getting like like transferring it to a PowerPoint, so it's like really condensed, and I know like really small and put together, and I kind of like distorted the actual thing, but I think that that's a good point. Like, it needs to be spaced out and readable and not really small print and yeah, appealing to the eye.
Crystal, could we go back to one of your examples and just take a quick look at it?
You see with this one, there's actually color whenever I copied it, but it turned out black, and like you can see there's different fonts, but I think it would be good to like you spaced out the points, and so just again make it easier on their eyes so they can like clearly catch what the main points are.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I mean, actually format is a huge deal, because what you want the executive to be able to do is within 10 seconds actually understand the narrative that you're telling them. So what's the problem, what's the solution, what are the risks, or whatever, however you're going to break it up, you want them to see where those pieces are going to be very quickly. Can you click to the previous one? This one I think is a little bit better in the sense that it's using spacing a little bit better. In terms of including a chart in your executive summary, it just depends on what you're talking about. But I think this is a little better. You can see, keys of success. Oh, there are 4 of them. Okay, great. I know where I can go for that. There's, the top 2 paragraphs. Again, not sure that's great, but it's a little bit better than what we just saw. Yeah.
I had a question just to add on to Andrew's. Regarding formatting, do you think it's appropriate to highlight different words or points through either emboldening them or italicizing or actually highlighting them?
I think that's good. I think that can be done within reasonable constraints. So like bolding, italicizing, underlining different keywords and phrases are good. Making something bright purple is a bad idea.
Okay. So let me just add. I'll just add on if you guys don't mind. So it's good to use bolding, underlining, italics to your advantage. It helps readers catch important things. I would be wary of having a document that just has like lots of bolding and all sorts of different places. So when you look at it, it's like a kaleidoscope or something. So if there are words or concepts that you want to draw out, first think about how can I structure the paragraph or the bullet point to get that word in the heading or the first word in the sentence. Then the bolding and the underline looks more natural. So structure your words so that the most important stuff is called out through its spacing and its placing first. Then think about how you can underline and bold and highlight and that sort of thing.
Yes.
If there's something particularly well said in the regular document, would it be appropriate to just lift exact phrases, or should you always try to summarize it and make it shorter?
Absolutely, that would be totally fine. Just take a specific key phrase you think is really concise and really valuable and put that in your document. It might be useful to put it in quotation marks and have like a little footnote of the page that appears on, but I don't think that's essential to do.
Yeah, that's good. Your executive summary doesn't have to be an original piece of work. It's kind of your greatest hits from your paper, so to the extent you can lift things right out of your paper, absolutely do it. The trick with the executive summary is not writing something new. It's formatting it and organizing it in a way that you can quickly understand what's going on. That's the real trick, not really the writing part, unless you have to do a little bit of summarizing. Yeah, so I agree with you on that. Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Round of applause.